Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Boy, was this a fun weekend. Got so much to talk about, breaking down both the NFC and the AFC Championship game, what this means for the legacies of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Conor McGregor also competed in UFC 257. That kind of flew under the radar over the weekend. I'm going to break down that matchup. And even Damian Lillard throws some additional shade at OKC. So a lot to get into. But let's start with the NFL. Listen, I was looking forward to this matchup between Tampa Bay and Green Bay for quite some time. And I think especially after that first matchup earlier in the year when Tampa Bay just absolutely annihilated Green Bay 38-10, all the questions came back to this matchup. How would both of these teams come out? How would they respond to that game? You're the Packers. You suffered that great defeat. Tampa Bay, what adjustments would you make? And to me, this was one of the most mesmerizing games that I've seen. And it's not just because of the action, but because of the rarity of this moment. The rarity in the fact that we're watching two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever do it compete against one another in the postseason for the first time in their histories. They've never faced off in the postseason. We saw that with Tom Brady against Drew Brees. They had never faced off in the postseason, and now we got a chance to see the all-time greats squaring off for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And I was captivated, and I was in awe the entire time. And the question coming into this matchup, the question's never really been, hey, which quarterback is the greatest quarterback of all time? I think that Tom Brady has cemented himself years ago as the GOAT. And typically, we've looked at a guy like Aaron Rodgers and have said, hey, this is the most talented player at the quarterback position that we've seen. Some people, including myself, would contend that Patrick Mahomes has entered that discussion and perhaps usurped Aaron Rodgers for that title. But regardless, that was always the question. It was never about, hey, is Aaron Rodgers going to surpass Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback ever? Because Tom Brady is the winningest quarterback, the most accomplished quarterback in NFL history. So that was never on the line. But it is interesting how the outcomes of the game and different play calls in a game can reflect who you are as a player and, more importantly, what your team and your franchise thinks about you as a player and as a leader. And there are two plays in particular that defined this game yesterday. Two plays. First, right before halftime, 4th and 4 at the Tampa Bay 49-yard line. They're up 14-10. Easily could have punted the ball away. Green Bay is awaiting with 2 timeouts. And initially, Tom Brady struts off the field, and it looks like the kicking unit or the punting unit's going to come out onto the field. Bruce Arians burns a timeout and instead says, you know what? He and Brady had this nice rapport going. He had ultimate confidence in Brady, and Brady said, the hell with punting. We're going for it. There's 13 seconds left in the half. He converts on a 4th and 4 for 6 yards with Leonard Fournette. So first and foremost, the fact that he even went for it on 4th and 4 when you could easily run the risk of coming up short, and now you give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers with at least one timeout, 10 seconds to go, maybe 15 yards to set up a Mason Crosby field goal. That's easily possible. So you're up 14-10. This game still hanging in the balance, but it almost felt like this moment was the first defining moment, not only of the game, of the Bucs season. And Bruce Arians said, hey, go win us this game. And Tom Brady converts on the 4th and 4 and then hits Scotty Miller on a 39-yard touchdown pass. Absolutely perfect. Did not try and play it safe. Did not try and opt to collect maybe an additional 10 yards to make the field goal a little bit easier. He said, no, I see a mismatch. Scotty Miller beat his defender deep. Let's take a shot down the field and try and step on the Packers' necks. And they did that, and they executed. They easily could have punted it. And that moment, you saw the faith that Bruce Arians, that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had provided Tom Brady. The confidence that he provided upon his arrival was just an infusion of confidence. And you saw that permeate to the entire team, to the entire organization. If you're not comfortable with your quarterback, if you don't fully believe and have fully bought in to who he is, you're not going for it on 4th and 4. And then most importantly, you're not going to take a shot down the field for 39 yards. And Brady executed to absolute perfection. And it demonstrated the aggressive, playing to win mentality that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers entered this game with. And that leads to the second defining play, which was the 4th and goal call. Matt LaFleur opted to kick the short chip shot field goal down 31-23. And you've got Aaron Rodgers right there. 4th and goal at the 8-yard line. And what this said, this was just like the organization sent a blatant message to Aaron Rodgers at the beginning of the offseason that, hey, we don't fully trust you. We don't fully believe that you're good enough to deliver and execute for us when we need you most. So what we're going to do is draft a quarterback in Jordan Love with the 26th overall pick in the first draft, instead of perhaps drafting another offensive piece, another weapon, or a defensive player, another pass rusher. So the message, just like the organization sent that message to Aaron Rodgers early on, Matt LaFleur sent the same message to Aaron Rodgers in that spot, that he does not trust Aaron Rodgers in that spot. With the game on the line, the Packers season on the line, you took the ball out of your best player's hands. And I get it. They were struggling. They had gone 3 straight pass plays, all from the same exact spot, and came up empty. And if you're Rodgers on that 3rd and goal, you should have tried to run for the end zone. You had a perfect lane right there. They stopped the image, and you could see the path that he had to the end zone. Now, I'm not saying he necessarily would have made it all the way in, but he would have at least gone to the 4, maybe the 3-yard line, if not better. And now that really sets up an easier 4th down. But the message that LaFleur sent to not only his team, that he's fearful, that his confidence has been rocked and battered, but you're also saying that you don't trust the guy that's gotten you to this point. And that's the big takeaway. Those 2 plays are what define what both of these organizations and head coaches think about their players. And additionally, mathematically, it still doesn't make sense. Because Matt LaFleur, what were you thinking from a mathematics standpoint? From a mathematics standpoint, if you kick the field goal, you still have to go down and get a touchdown. You're already in the red zone. So the pros and cons of kicking the field goal and now putting the onus on your defense to be the heroes of the game and to try and stop Tom Brady from collecting 10 yards is preposterous. You don't think Tom Brady, when the money's on the line, can get you 10 yards? They needed 1 first down to win this game. And Matt LaFleur said, you know what? I'd rather trust our defense to get a stop with essentially 4 timeouts, 3 timeouts, and the 2-minute warning than from 8 yards away give the NFL League's MVP a chance to hit Devontae Adams or Robert Tonyan or Alan Lazard or Valdez-Scantling, someone else, to set up a 2-point conversion to tie this game. Not to mention, the other piece of it that no one's been talking about is, okay, let's say you don't get it and you go for it on 4th and goal. Tampa Bay is still pinned deep in their half of the field. They're still very close to their own end zone and would likely be much more predictable with their play calls. They'd probably more predictably run it straight up the gut. I wouldn't anticipate them passing it too often in that spot. So now you give yourself a better chance and you reduce the number of potential plays that you'd likely have to worry about. And so those were the two defining plays, but there are always moments in games where you have to look at a sequence. What's the key drive? What's the key sequence in this game? And the reality is the sequence of the game was when it was 28-23. Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions, and on the last 2 interceptions, the Packers went 3 and out on 2 straight possessions and punted 2 straight times. That is your ball game right there. I don't want to hear about Aaron Rodgers didn't get an extra chance to march his team down the field for a game-winning drive. No, that was the opportunity. That's why you fight so hard for home field advantage. That's why Aaron Rodgers was clamoring for an opportunity to finally host an NFC Championship game at home. It's not just because the crowd noise is terrorizing to the opponents. It's not just because of the weather. The benefit of having fans is that when you're trailing, they can keep it a tight ball game for you. They can discombobulate the opponent's offense to the point that when they're leading, it can prevent them from building on that lead, giving you an extra chance, giving you an additional opportunity to climb your way back into a ball game. And they did that. They induced a couple turnovers. I do think that the fans, however 8,500 of them that were there, contributed to the rare mistakes shown by Brady and the offense. And they gave Aaron Rodgers ample opportunities. You're talking about at the end of the 3rd quarter, top of the 4th quarter, a 5-point game. You give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers twice after forcing 2 interceptions, and you got to punt it out, punt it on 2 straight 3 and outs. They couldn't even collect 1 first down. That falls on Aaron Rodgers and the offense. Those were the opportunities. When the game is teetering, that's when having the fan base and the crowd works to your benefit. It's not always when you're already leading big. It just continues to pile on top of itself and exacerbate the issues for the opponent. It's not just when the opponent is struggling. It's when you need a juice, when you're trailing and you need to find a spark. And they were set up beautifully to take the lead multiple times, and they couldn't even collect 10 yards. They couldn't even move the sticks 1 time. And so, you have Devontae Adams. He misses a rare catch in the end zone that would have tied the game 14-all in the 2nd quarter. Now you have to settle for a field goal. That's a rare miscue between the two of them. And again, as I mentioned, big-time players make big-time plays. Players win these football games. And Aaron Rodgers, you had an opportunity to try and run it in on that 3rd and goal. I still think you had a path. You had a lane. And he didn't decide to take it, tried to force a pass, and it's batted down. And now you send Mason Crosby out, and there's your ball game. So it was a fantastic game. And Tom Brady, listen, he finds a way to win. Congrats. He's advancing to his 10th Super Bowl. 14th conference championship game he played in yesterday. And in his first season with the Bucs, first season in the vaunted NFC, this was greatness personified. This was absolutely greatness personified. The intellect, the decision-making, the clutch, timely throws. I mean, you take away some of those 2 awful picks that he threw where he just essentially heaved it to no one at the slightest bit of pressure. You eliminate those 2 throws, He was throwing darts. He was playing with confidence. I mean, the mustard he was putting on some of those throws. He's 43. And this is like everyone trying to debunk the LeBron theory of, oh, he can only win in the East. And then he comes to the West, and the first year that he has an all-star in Anthony Davis, he wins the NBA Finals. Brady was playing in the weak AFC East for years and years. Oh, he can't win in the NFC. Okay, I'm going to sign with Tampa Bay. I'm going to go through two of my all-time great contemporaries in Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back games on the road. I'm going to beat them handily, and I'm going to punch our ticket to the Super Bowl. I'm going to bring along a team that has epitomized mediocrity for the last 13 years, hasn't made it to a Super Bowl game since 2002, and I'm going to bring us there in our first season in the NFC. I mean, the Bucs just became the 5th team in NFL history to win 3 straight road games en route to reaching the Super Bowl. He just does it in year one. He does it in year one, and now gets to face the reigning Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs, in what should be just a fantastic game filled with so many more storylines. And I want to transition to the Kansas City Chiefs because I think that sometimes we get this fatigue when we watch sports. And we've seen it all across in the NBA, of course, LeBron winning, making it to the finals, Golden State Warriors reaching the finals, winning. We have this fatigue with athletes, and the same thing can be said about Tom Brady. We've seen him so many times in the Super Bowl. We almost root for the opposition just for some intrigue, just for some uniqueness. And instead of appreciating greatness at times, we seek new alternatives. And the Kansas City Chiefs, I've said this before, if Patrick Mahomes was going to play this game, I didn't see this game being close at all, assuming he was healthy. And it wasn't. The final score does not reflect the lack of competitiveness in this game. Yeah, the final score 38-24. But the Chiefs were up by so much beforehand. And this is like when you go to a movie theater and you watch a really great film, and at the end of the film, everyone starts standing up and just kind of clapping their hands in approval of the movie. And it's one of the corniest things ever because who are you clapping for? Why are you doing this? The director's not there. The actors aren't in the movie theater. Who are you clapping for? And it is one of the corniest, awkwardest things because you're just in there in the movie theater, and it's like everyone has this synchronized reverence for the movie, and you just start giving it a standing ovation. Well, listen, I am going to be that guy who's awkward in the movie theater because I'm going to give a standing ovation to Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs, to Tyreek Hill, to Travis Kelce, to the defense. This is the ultimate power-up button on the joystick. This is getting that level-up, power-up box in Mario Kart, and you get the magic bullet that just races you all the way to the front. You just ride this bullet all the way, this magic bullet all the way to the front of the race, and that's where it drops you. Because Kansas City just doesn't understand deficits. They've never understood deficits. You look at this team last year, first round against the Houston Texans. They trailed 24-0. Against Tennessee and the Titans, they trailed 10-0. In the AFC Championship game. In the Super Bowl, they trailed 20-10 against the 49ers. And in each one of these games, they went on a miraculous, shouldn't say miraculous, just an incredible comeback in the matter of minutes. They went on a 41-0 blitz against the Texans to win that game by 20. They went on a 35-7 run against Tennessee in that AFC Championship game. Then they went on a 21-0 run against the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. And now against the Bills yesterday, they trail 9-0. Really, they shouldn't have even trailed 9-0. The fact that McCole Hardman muffed a punt deep into his own half of the field, and the Bills pounce on top of it at the 3-yard line. If you strip that play, they shouldn't have even trailed that much, but they did. And then right on cue, they go on a 21-0 run, as we would expect. As we would expect. And this offense, think about this. We know that they're a juggernaut. We've been saying that for weeks. You realize that the leader in receiving yards in the NFL was a tight end, was Travis Kelce, wasn't even a wide receiver. That is mind-blowing. Tyreek Hill, 9 catches, 172 yards. Travis Kelce, 13 catches, 113 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. They're phenomenal. And this is like you're playing Madden and you've set the level to easy. And every route you're running, your player's just getting wide open. You're winning all the 50-50 jump balls. Everything's going your way. It's the easy mode in Madden. Like, this is what this offense is. And Mahomes was electric. He was dialed in, 29 of 38, 320-something yards, passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And he's just an electric player. So versatile, so calm, so collected. And his team just follows him and his gait, his persona. I understand his level of play didn't warrant an MVP this year, and it was justified because Aaron Rodgers had a better, not only statistical season, but just played more consistently and consistently well. But I've always contended that Patrick Mahomes, since I saw him, was the best quarterback in the NFL. And in my opinion, it's early. I get it. It's an early prognostication that he's the greatest quarterback ever, including Tom Brady, or at least he's on path for that. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback, and Tom Brady is certainly making another case to the contrary. But if the Kansas City Chiefs beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, that will only further contribute to corroborating that narrative. Then you look at the defense. And again, the first thing I said about Kansas City and about teams that win Super Bowls and at least make it to the Super Bowl game. This is a trait that seems to be innate with all championship DNAs. It's never that defense wins championships. Timely defensive stops wins championships. This Kansas City defense was never good this year. They were mediocre in total defense. They gave up tons of yards. And in the moment of truth, their defense sacked Josh Allen 4 times for 53 yards. Frank Clark was a monster with 2 sacks. The secondary locked up Stephon Diggs with the exception of one big pass play very late in the game when it was already out of hand. They bottled him up. The defense was absolutely phenomenal. And again, you couple that with execution in the red zone, which was the other part of the storyline entering this game, was which team would be able to execute better in the red zone. That advantage went to Kansas City. 5 for 6 for touchdowns for Kansas City in the red zone, 2 for 5 for Buffalo. And it was actually super interesting because Buffalo, had they not opted to go for 2 when they were trailing and made it a 21-38 ball game, had they just decided to kick the extra point, they had just returned the onside kick with 3 timeouts remaining. Now it could have been a 2-possession game, and then you hit Stephon Diggs on that huge 30-yard completion, and you're back in business. You're back in this game. I don't really know why they opted to go for 2. I'm not really sure with this recent propensity of teams to go for 2 all the time. Kick the field goal or extra point. Make it a little easier. I understand the numbers. I understand what they say. throw analytics out the window. Just kick the extra point. Now, if you successfully execute the onside kick, which they did, which was the first time in like 20 attempts in the postseason that a team recovered an onside kick when they needed to, now it's a 2-possession game. So now this just sets up a serendipitous matchup between Kansas City and Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. And you look at Patrick Mahomes, he's 6-1 in the postseason. His only loss coming to Tom Brady when he was in New England. They lost 37-31 in overtime. He never got a chance to touch the ball in OT. And we've been waiting for perhaps an opportunity for Mahomes to exact some revenge. And now he's getting that chance. And the irony is that the Chiefs are trying to win back-to-back Super Bowls and back-to-back Lombardi trophies for the first time since the Patriots did it with Brady in 2004 and 2005. So there's storylines galore. I'm going to be breaking down the matchup and different storylines throughout the next 2 weeks because the Super Bowl won't take place for another 2 weeks. But this outcome was pretty predictable to me. I expected the Chiefs to be here, and congrats to them. When you are the hunted year in and year out and you still find a way to turn it on in the biggest spot of your season when you needed it most, that's really impressive. That's really impressive. Mike Willis, Morning Joe, go. Appreciate it, Mike. Appreciate the support. Once again, you're watching Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, and on YouTube, Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. So I want to stick with some of these storylines and narratives surrounding Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers after that matchup. And with any sporting event, there's always two sides of the coin. What's the impact that a win or a loss has on a specific player? How should we begin to evaluate and perceive this individual, right? And this becomes heightened when you talk about really monumental legacies that are on the line. Brady, Rodgers, one's the most statistically accomplished and the greatest winner, the greatest of all time at his position. Juxtapose the other guy that many believe is the most talented quarterback of all time. The overall best skill set, the overall best package, right? And prior to this matchup, all the questions were, well, what would happen if Brady wins this game or Rodgers loses this game or vice versa, right? And I'm a big context guy. I think that the manner in which you win games should play a role in not only how you are perceived, but how you are judged, because football is the ultimate team sport. I think that in a sport like basketball or a sport like tennis, one guy, well, obviously tennis and golf, one guy is the outcome, right? And in basketball, one guy can have a huge impact on the outcome of a game. In football, you need the entire team to be clicking on all cylinders. It's the ultimate team sport. And I think that when we're looking at Brady and Rodgers, the first thing you have to say is they're both champions. They're both Super Bowl champions. They're both Super Bowl MVPs. So you can throw out the flawed argument that can you lead your team to a Super Bowl and to a Super Bowl win? The answer is yes. Both of them have done that. Now you look at how did they perform? How did they play? And to be honest, both of them played pretty well. I understand that Brady threw those 3 interceptions, but 20 of 36, he was hitting some timely darts, some timely throws, 280 yards, still 3 touchdowns, 75 QBR. He stepped up, made a couple of really, really great throws. I thought it was actually one of the best games he's played all year. And Rodgers also played pretty well. 33 of 48, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, just 1 interception. The final category that you have to look at is leadership. How do the players surrounding Brady and Rodgers respond to their leadership. And this is why, to me, Brady's legacy elevated substantially more than Aaron Rodgers is diminished. To me, the story is that Brady's legacy elevated because when you start to compare these two guys, when you start to compare their leadership methods, Aaron Rodgers is a much more prickly, bristly individual. He's not a warm and fuzzy tree you're just going to go up and hug. Tom Brady, while he's hard on his teammates, he does a great job of ingratiating himself and ingratiating his teammates and cultivating really strong relationships. That is one of his calling cards. That's one of the unique aspects of his leadership. And that's why he's been able to bring in so many former, for lack of a better term, nutcases onto his team and makes them work. He seamlessly integrates them into the team. Example A, Antonio Brown, who didn't even play this year, bought in right away when he was with Brady for the first time in New England. And Tampa Bay trusted that Tom Brady's judgment would work out again. They brought in Antonio Brown, and he's been working really well. His ego's been left out the door, and he's contributed. And the confidence level that each team plays with normally reflects and mimics that of their leader, that of their quarterback. And it always seems that when Tom Brady plays, his teams just find ways to win. He always seems to hit that big play, convert that big third down. The defense seems to always come up with that big stop, provide him with that extra possession. He's the best at simply finding ways to win. All these nip and tuck close games on the road, at home, he comes out on top. And that is how he's been able to differentiate himself and separate himself from all these other talented quarterbacks. He's not the most athletic. He's not the strongest. But his IQ, his intelligence is so much greater than everyone else. I mean, we saw against Kansas City 2 years ago up in Arrowhead. They weren't projected to win that game. And it was one of the greatest road wins in the AFC Championship game ever. And he wins in overtime 37-31. Say what you want about the pre-snap penalty, and he threw a pick, and they waved it off. I don't really care. That's leadership. How do your teammates respond to your level of confidence, to your level of play? And the issue is that with Aaron Rodgers, he's never seemed to be able to overcome some of these deficiencies. And there have been some valid ones. He's 1-4 right now in the NFC Championship games. He's lost 4 straight games. And we've always had excuses for Aaron Rodgers, whether the offensive line isn't playing well, the defense isn't good, doesn't have enough wide receiver help. And a lot of these arguments are valid and are justified. And yesterday, their offensive line did not protect him well. He was sacked 5 times. David Bakhtiari, their star all-pro tackle, was not there. And it's a legitimate argument. But I think part of the reason why we hold Brady to this higher standard, and why when Rodgers loses, we simply try to come to his defense, is because we haven't, not because he's not great, because he's absolutely fantastic. But it's because we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers in the postseason be able to overcome deficiencies. Most of the time, the circumstances have to be absolutely perfect. And what we've seen from Tom Brady year in and year out is he can consistently deliver through adversity and when everything's not going his way. And so, to me, Brady now has a chance to do something that no quarterback has ever been able to do, including his childhood idol of Joe Montana. He has a chance to go back to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl for the first year with a new team. Joe Montana nearly did it with the Kansas City Chiefs. He had played 14 seasons with the 49ers and signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. and reached the AFC Championship game. Lost to the Buffalo Bills 30-13. He was very close. A very successful run with Kansas City, but he couldn't reach that precipice. And now you've got a guy in Tom Brady who not only has a chance to reach that milestone, but the other thing is perceptions of both of these quarterbacks. No one was ever saying that Aaron Rodgers won because of Mike McCarthy. That was never an argument. That was never a discussion. No one ever said that Aaron Rodgers entering this game needed to win to prove to a former head coach that he could win without him. No one argued that. No one said that Aaron Rodgers, with a win, would catapult himself to the greatest quarterback of all time. Instead, all that a win would merely do is continue to enhance his legacy into more of the upper echelon of some of the all-time great quarterbacks and kind of distance himself further from a bunch of the other one-win Super Bowl quarterbacks. But for Brady, his entire career was augmented and marred by the presence of Bill Belichick in New England. Who deserves more of the credit, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady? In the eyes of many, they had been leaning a little bit towards Bill Belichick, either 50-50 or 51-49 Bill Belichick. And so in New England, there was constantly this cloud overshadowing the accomplishments of Tom Brady that were just kind of biting at him. And that's part of the reason why he wanted to leave. And this was a statement not only to the NFL, not only to pundits and journalists that discounted him, not only to the Patriots, but to Bill Belichick himself. He sent the message, hey, listen, you tried to ship me out because you thought I was a washed quarterback? You're making a grave mistake. And this is an opportunity for Brady to silence those critics. Not because, again, he's already attained the status as the GOAT. But when you talk about leaders being individually responsible for carrying a team, he was never garnering that type of respect that he deserved and adulation and praise. He just wasn't receiving that. And now you have Guy and Brady who embarks on this voyage to the NFC for the first time ever of his career, and he joins one of the worst franchises in the game's history, especially in recent years, and takes him to the Super Bowl in his first season. It's absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Paul Cushing, do you think Rodgers is going to leave Green Bay this offseason? So this is a topic that I was going to talk about. Appreciate you tuning in, Paul. This was a topic I was going to talk about a little bit later down the road. Right now, he's signed in through 2023, Aaron Rodgers. He signed in through 2023. And so I don't think that he's going to be going anywhere because, quite frankly, I don't think the Packers would necessarily trade him right now. But I do think that he will exert some power, some pressure on that front office to collect and draft some guys for him. And that if they don't do that, then he's going to demand a trade out. Just like we're seeing with Deshaun Watson. And you know what? He's earned the right to do that because the disrespect that the front office showed him by not drafting a player. Do you realize that Jordan Love didn't even play one snap this year? Not even some garbage time drive. He did not enter the game all season long. So I think that Aaron Rodgers is still going to stay there, partly because he's in a great situation. He's in a division that he can easily win year in and year out. The Vikings don't know what the hell they're doing with Kirk Cousins. They don't know what they have. The Bears, it's a mess right now with Mitch Trubisky. And the Detroit Lions just hired a guy in Dan Campbell, who, if you listen to his opening press conference, you'd think he just sniffed like smelling salts prior to the pregame conference. I mean, the what he was blabbering was absolute gibberish. It was all these cliches. He didn't say anything. So that division is easily winnable, which means he'll likely have a first round home playoff win for the foreseeable future. You obviously want to stay away from the AFC because then you're going to be going up against Patrick Mahomes every single season, maybe Josh Allen, maybe Lamar Jackson. And right now, your biggest competition in the NFC, aside from Tom Brady, but he's 43 and he keeps going, he keeps trucking along. But outside of that, the biggest competition is maybe Russell Wilson. And right now, with the exception of maybe the Indianapolis Colts, who I think are a golden job for a quarterback, the Indianapolis Colts job is probably should be the most coveted job right now for a quarterback in the NFL. I mean, this team is absolutely stacked. They've got everything you want, but they're in the AFC. Now, their division is easily winnable, but I do think that he should probably stay right now. I also think it's weird. I understand we've seen it a little bit more in football, but I like when your cornerstone pieces remain with one franchise. That's my personal opinion. It was weird the first time Tom Brady left, but to his credit, he had played 19 years with New England. Aaron Rodgers has started 13 seasons in Green Bay. I still think that he's got the best chance to win in Green Bay. So it's a good question. I'm going to delve more into it, but he has certainly earned the right to be upset and ticked off by the fact that you draft a guy that literally hasn't contributed a single second to your season this entire year. Okay, so I want to transition now to the UFC very quickly. I haven't always been the biggest fighting guy. I just haven't always watched it. I don't know if I didn't want to pay for it. Maybe I'm a little bit frugal that way. Chose not to watch these events. But there was something about Conor McGregor about 5 years ago that just kind of sparked my interest. And this one individual was so captivating that I was like, you know what? I need to start watching this guy. Every time he goes, I need to see him play. Need to see him fight. And so UFC 257, the lightweight championship took place Saturday night in Abu Dhabi. First of all, credit to Abu Dhabi for not giving to, you know what, to just host literally what looked like 15,000 people in in their stands in that stadium or arena, whatever. And this is one of the things that I've always loved and respected, especially recently, about the UFC and the entire fighting game, is that it's entirely based on self-promotion. Yes, you have to have a certain skill set. You have to have a certain record. You have to be an interesting person. You have to be a really talented fighter. There's no question. But it solely relies on your ability to promote yourself and your talents. It's entirely reliant on that. And so from that perspective, what you end up seeing are really interesting personalities and characters. And Conor McGregor is the ultimate character that has probably done the best job of any UFC fighter at promoting himself, building himself up, and gaining that clout and that cachet through his promotion. Every time you listen to this guy in a conference, you want to run through a brick wall, either to try and beat the hell out of him or to watch him beat the hell out of someone else. And he already cashed in big time against Floyd. That's what his self-promotion led to, was a huge payout against Floyd Mayweather a couple years ago. He ended up netting, I think, close to $130 million. He was supposed to at least get $30 million. And then after the pay-per-view results and came in, and just absolutely shattered that number. And he got to split part of the ad revenue. He made close to 130 on that fight. So this fight against Dustin Poirier wasn't necessarily about clout, wasn't about a money grab necessarily, although he did win at least $5 million for the fight. But this was about him trying to re-enter a world that he had been so far removed from for the last 5 years. And you're watching McGregor, and he's got all this swagger, got all this confidence as he enters into the building, and I love that about him. He's got this bravado, this gait, this strut where his chest is fully out. I absolutely love that. And the fight was great. It was absolutely fantastic. I loved watching it. I wish it would have lasted a third round, but it didn't. And in the beginning, it started out with a flurry of haymakers by McGregor, and he was landing a couple of them. He was delivering some shoulder punches to the or shoulder blows to the face. That was absolutely fantastic. But then we saw Poirier go to those calf kicks. And I was always surprised because I'm watching this and I'm seeing that McGregor isn't flinching at all, isn't trying to block or defend him at all. He's just letting the calf kicks continue to hit him. And I was just so confused. I was like, listen, I understand you got a strong calf, but at some point, those leg kicks are going to start, you're going to start feeling them. And eventually his leg just completely gave out. He couldn't stay in there. And he was basically walking around on one foot. And I've said this before, the one thing you can't do if you're in the fighting industry, if you're in the fighting business, you can't be inactive for so long. You're going to lose your fitness, you're going to lose your conditioning, your endurance, and your feel for the octagon, for the ring. Because he's only fought 3 times since 2016. He fought Cowboy Cerrone last year in January. And prior to that, he fought Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2018. Before that, he hadn't fought since 2016. So you're talking about the third fight in 5 years. And the octagon will turn you into a man real quickly. These are guys that are fighting for their livelihoods. You go in there looking to get hurt. Either you're the one delivering the pain or you're receiving it. And Conor McGregor was not ready. He was not ready for that fight on Saturday night. He absolutely wasn't. This was very predictable. You cannot survive this sport with that much inactivity for so long. And listen, the octagon is no joke. You enter there with bad intentions, and you exit there with battle wounds, with scars, with stars up in your eyes. And credit to McGregor's always a very classy guy, held himself well, but Dustin Poirier just looked like the more dominant, the more confident fighter. And when he had his opportunity, I mean, he was controlling a lot of that second round. That second round is where you could see those calf kicks really started to wear down McGregor. And Poirier found his opportunity with a nice little combination jab. And once he saw blood in the water, he pounced on it. McGregor was down, and it was nights out. It was lights out for Dustin Poirier, and he was ready. He wanted to avenge that 2014 loss, but I'll say it again. Listen, McGregor's still the hot commodity anywhere he goes, and I'm always going to be drawn to his fights, and the UFC knows that. Dana White knows that, and they're going to continue to promote him moving forward. There are a couple of other guys that he can fight, not yet to reclaim or fight for a championship belt, but there are plenty of people that he could fight to garner a little bit more consideration to set up that rematch, perhaps with Poirier, that rematch with or that trilogy with Nurmagomedov, because we know Nurmagomedov is technically retired. So It was a great event. Congrats to Poirier. That was a big time win on a big stage for him. And it's so interesting because I'm an American guy, and for some reason, we always are rooting against the American guys. I was talking about this with some of my friends when we were watching the fight. I was like, wait, why are we rooting so hard for McGregor when he's an Irish guy? Why aren't we rooting for the American? Dustin Poirier is an American guy. Why aren't we rooting for him? I don't really know. Maybe it's because he was less interesting up until that fight. But congrats to him. Big time, uh, big time win. Joe Gazaldo, McGregor not being ready is an understatement. How embarrassing. No way Khabib should give him a shot. First of all, Joe Gazaldo, appreciate you tuning in. You're absolutely right. I don't think Nurmagomedov should give him a shot, should give him that platform. But I will say this. If you're Nurmagomedov and maybe you're a little strapped for cash, you don't think you could make at least 5 to 10 million fighting Conor McGregor right now? It's true. Give him a couple weeks or a couple weeks. Give him a couple months to build up that record again and have that momentum. But if you're Nurmagomedov, I'd think about it. I would certainly think about it because you could make at least 5 to 10 million dollars at least, not to mention whatever ad revenue you can get. So that would be my my take. But good question. Okay, this was a very undercovered story. I don't know if anyone was really watching this story, but Damian Lillard just released a new line of kicks that celebrated his iconic Game 5 series winner over Paul George in OKC when he was still a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this was just a sweet homage to that moment. It's got his stat line on the tongue of the shoe. 50.7 rebounds, 6 assists. That's when he hit that like 37 to 40 footer over Paul George to wave goodbye to Paul George and Russell Westbrook and OKC. There was so much trash talking and chirping throughout that entire series and the Game 5 clincher. That was just a sweet, sweet moment. Of course, we remember that Paul George had claimed that it was a bad shot. And of course, Lillard took offense to that. And this is one of the reasons why I've loved and respected Damian Lillard so much, is because he's never looked to form a super team or join a super team. Now, it's come at a consequence, it's come at a cost. He hasn't really achieved much postseason success. That's certainly one of the ramifications, but I respect the hell out of his competitive spirit. He's willing to lose, but lose with dignity, even if that means not joining a team. And it's moments like this where, listen, you square up Lillard, McCollum, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook in that matchup, and he prevailed. He came out on top, and just an ultra competitive mindset. And I absolutely love it. And the colorway is literally the colors of OKC, and he's not letting them forget, hey, this is what I did to you. Now, unfortunately for him, he won't have the same level of satisfaction because the only guy on Oklahoma City that is still on that team that he faced against is Hamidou Diallo, is the only guy that remains on that Oklahoma City team that he beat, because everyone else is either traded, shipped off, or retired. So I still love the shot. Still love the shot by Damian Lillard. Everything about it was absolutely fantastic. All right, final topic of the day, my Malkin's moments. Got 2 great Malkin's moments for you this week. Again, my favorite segment. Shout out if you want to sponsor it. It's my favorite segment of the entire show. And the first one is that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are becoming the first team to go to their host Super Bowl. They're hosting a Super Bowl in their home stadium. The first time we've ever seen that in the NFL. The 10th Super Bowl appearance for Tom Brady. He's 6-3 in the Super Bowl. And he'll be just the 4th quarterback in Super Bowl history to start for 2 teams. That is just absolutely a phenomenal stat. And again, I remember entering this season, all the talk was, oh, Tampa Bay is going to be hosting the Super Bowl. Wow, how cool would that be if Tom Brady can lead the Buccaneers back to that spot? Perhaps he can. And all the rumblings were happening. And then once they made the playoffs and they beat the Washington football team, well, it's a little bit daunting, but they've got a chance. They got to go through Drew Brees and the Saints. They did that. Well, now you got to go to Lambeau Field, the number 1 seed Packers. I don't know if you can do that. And they did. And now they're hosting Super Bowl, I think 54. Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't check which Super Bowl it is. I think it's 54. And his counterpart leads to my second Malkin's moment, which is that Patrick Mahomes is set to become the youngest quarterback in NFL history to start in 2 Super Bowls. He'll be 25 years old, 143 days on Super Bowl Sunday. Russell Wilson was the second youngest, 26 years old, and 64 days old when he started for the Seattle Seahawks in those consecutive seasons, and I believe 2013 and 2014. So I'm going to continue to touch on that story leading up to the next couple of weeks. That's all that I got for you today on Morning Joe. Wow, this was a jam-packed show today. Thank you so much for joining me on Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin, wishing every single one of you a great rest of your morning.